The possession of James I was a nurse working in a private hospital, often enduring long shifts. After returning home from a grueling 2-day shift, a series of terrifying events began to unfold in my house. I discovered that my brother James was no longer himself. An evil entity had taken over his body. I had no idea how long I had slept, but I woke up to a strange sound, like someone writing on glass with a pen. The noise was unbearably unsettling. I sat up in bed, rubbed my eyes, and looked at the mirror. Words were scrawled in a deep red color that resembled blood. "I am James, believe me, ever. The one with you is not James, he is a demon." I pressed my hands against my eyes, rubbing them repeatedly before looking again. The letters were still forming, writing themselves slowly until the message became clear. "You must believe me. You are all in danger. The thing with you is not James. This is just a nightmare," I tried to convince myself. But it didn't stop there. The words began appearing rapidly on the walls. The furniture shook violently, and the mirrors lifted into the air as if held by an invisible force. Suddenly, the mirror crashed onto the floor, shattering into countless shards. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to recall a single verse from the Quran. I screamed at the top of my lungs, and the door burst open. My parents and James rushed in. My mother ran to me, embracing me tightly while reciting verses from the Quran, her hands trembling as she stroked my hair. She scanned the room in horror, the shattered mirror, the scattered clothes, the overturned furniture. I told them everything, and I saw deep concern and fear on my parents' faces, except for James. He stared at me with an eerie coldness, showing no reaction. He wasn't afraid. He didn't even care about what I had just said. He just stood there, silent. The next day, 2 days passed, and James was no longer himself. He didn't go to work, and his fiancée, Claire, complained that he had stopped talking to her. When he did speak, he would lash out at her for no reason. During our last phone call, she told me something chilling. "Ava, I was studying in my room when suddenly a strong gust of wind blew, scattering all my papers across the desk. There was one blank sheet left. Then words started forming on it by themselves, and when I read them, I felt a shiver run down my spine. I am James, believe me. The one with you is not James, he is a demon." I froze in place. What the hell was happening? The terrifying confirmation. That night, I was sleeping in my room when a strange sensation woke me up. It felt like someone was pulling the blanket off me. I opened my eyes slowly and saw James standing at the foot of my bed. Shock, paralyzed. Me? Why was he in my room in the middle of the night? Why was he trying to pull my blanket away? When he noticed I was awake, he hesitated, mumbled something unintelligible, and quickly left the room. I didn't tell anyone, but I decided to keep a close eye on him. Something was very, very wrong. The first confrontation. A few days later, I was in my room, scrolling through my phone, when I heard my mother scream. I rushed outside and found her on the floor by James's room, sobbing uncontrollably. James stood by the apartment door, about to leave. I ran to my mother and asked her what had happened. She looked up at me with a trembling voice. "That is not James. The James I raised would never lay a hand on me." He had pushed her to the ground when she tried to wake him up. James was never violent. He had never even raised his voice at our mother, let alone hurt her physically. I tried to comfort her, but deep down I was more terrified than ever. The breaking point. James was out for hours. When he finally returned home, my father was furious. He slapped James across the face, but James's reaction was horrifying. He grabbed my father by the throat, his eyes glowing red as if soaked in blood, and growled in a voice I had never heard before, "If you touch me again, I will bury you right here." My father couldn't even respond. He collapsed, unconscious. James, on the other hand, simply walked to his room as if nothing had happened. The horrifying truth. That night, I woke up again to the sound of writing on the mirror. I looked up and saw the words forming. "Now you are certain." The one with, "You is not James. If you wait any longer, he will kill you all." I grabbed a pen and wrote on the glass. "What do I do? How did this happen?" More words appeared. "Get a piece of paper, place it on the desk, and hold the pen." I did as instructed. Suddenly my hand started moving on its own, writing something. Involuntarily, when it stopped, I read the message. It all started when I read about astral projection and decided to try it. On my last attempt, I succeeded. I saw myself sleeping on the bed, but then a hideous entity appeared, approached me, and entered my body. From that moment,